Thank you, everybody, for coming. How many people have used Styles in SketchUp before? A few people? How many people have never used Styles? A few people? Quite a few more people. OK, good. So here's what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. We've got about an hour and 10, an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about Styles. I'm going to talk about this new application that we released a few months ago called Style Builder. How many of you have never heard of Style Builder ever? Quite a few. OK, so this is going to be new for you. Style Builder is actually in beta right now, which means that we're still working on it. It is a pro feature of SketchUp. So if you have SketchUp Pro, you can absolutely try it. If you have time left in your SketchUp Pro evaluation and you don't have SketchUp Pro, you can also try it that way. If you have no time left in your evaluation, then you might be able to contact sales, and they might be able to sort of extend your evaluation. If none of those things work, then you probably can't try Styles. Or you can try Styles, but you can't try Style Builder. Does that make sense? OK. I'm going to talk about something called watermarks inside of Styles. Has anybody done that yet? A few people? OK. So people who have never done watermarks? OK. So we're going to talk about watermarks. We're going to talk about doing what's called alpha transparency in watermarks. Ooh, anybody? Some people? No? Exciting. And we're going to talk about sort of creating your own style and sort of saving it on your machine, if that makes any sense. OK, so let's take a look at styles first, and then I'm going to introduce the notion of what we call NPR styles, non-photorealistic, basically hand-drawn styles. Who knows what this is a model of? My house, right. Because, what's that? I'm not an architect. I'm not, what's that? Ha, ha, ha. That's very good. I'm glad you've developed enough of like a familiarity with me that people can mock me openly from the audience. That's excellent. OK. All right, so what we've got is a little model of my house. We're not going to talk about it in any kind of a thorough way. I'm just going to use it as a kind of poster child for styles. OK? First of all, Styles is a feature that's available under the Window menu in the Styles, or in the SketchUp menu system. I'm just going to go to Window, Styles, just like that. And I'm going to switch this back over to thumbnails. OK, so when you open Styles, it's going to look something like this, probably. And look, Styles is a daunting dialog box. I'm not going to, there's no BS here. This is not an easy feature necessarily of SketchUp, but it is really powerful. So having a passing familiarity with it is really, really going to able to not just change the way your model looks, you're going to be able to change the way your model performs. So you're going to be able to increase the speed that your model runs on your computer by fiddling with styles, which is reason in and of itself to use it. Do you agree with that? OK, so pay attention to this part. Here we go. Styles has 3 tabs. There's Select, Edit, and Mix. Select is where you select what style to apply to your model. OK, this is a, I'm just clicking on this. This is sort of a hand-drawn, like, white liquid paper on blue paper style. This is, I guess you could call sort of a ghetto rapper style or something. It's like graffiti on a brick wall or something. You get the idea, right? Here I can pick styles. Over in the Edit dialog box is where I actually change the style that I have applied to my model. Does that make sense? So Edit is where I edit the styles. Select is where I choose a style to apply. OK, so let's go over to the Edit side here. I'm just going to show you that. If I, let's say, deselect Display Edges in the Edit pane right here, you see how it turns the edges off on that style? OK, so this is what you have to remember about styles. Styles are collections of display settings. So let's say I wanted to display edges, and I wanted to make those edges look like they were done with a spray paint can, and I want a background that's got brick, and I want textures to show up, and I don't want shadows, or not shadows. Shadows aren't part of styles. I do want depth Q. Then I save all those settings, and then I name it, and I call it something. And when I save that, that's called a style. And I can apply that style to my model, any time, and it'll always look like that. OK? So that's basically what styles are. Let's go through some of the styles that we have in the system here. This is it's kind of a boring style. I guess this style is meant to emulate what your model might look like if you drop it in Google Earth, actually. So it's useful from a preview point of view, I guess. This one is, I don't know, Tron Robot. It's kind of ironic, right? You've got the funny C prompt down here. But the notion was we wanted to make it look like you were doing this on a computer from like 1983. This is really meant to be a sampler of styles. So this little library in the Select menu called Assorted Styles it's just sort of a showcase for what styles can do. Take a look at them and see how they're built, but we absolutely don't mean seriously for you to use these in any respect. Let's see what else is cool. This is kind of neat. This is just like a little Sharpie or pencil on tracing paper. Notice how when I zoom out here, the detail in that window is disappearing, but as I zoom in, the detail is starting to appear again. Everybody see that? That's kind of cool, right? I mean, what it's doing is it's actually deciding what edges to show based on the level of detail that's appropriate for how far you are from the model and how big it appears. This is kind of revolutionary. This is what we mean by non-photorealistic rendering. Instead of showing everything that should be visible, we just show what would be visible if you needed this level of abstraction. This is a cool tip that people liked this morning, so I'm going to show you again. This is a style called whiteboard. And kind of neat, right? It sort of looks like a whiteboard. How do you think we got it so that the edges are all different colors? Anybody know about that? Yeah? Color by, yeah, axis by color, like that? Okay, so let me show you something here. If I go to Edit, and then in this Edges thing right there, do you see this little drop down that says Color, All Same, or By Material, By Axis? Most styles, in fact, when you start up a new model in SketchUp, this thing is set to All Same, meaning all the edges are going to be the same color, and I can choose an edge color here if I want to. The neat thing about this is that it lets you say, make the colors by axis. So what's happening here? Why is that blue? Because it's what? Because it's vertical, exactly, because it's parallel to the blue axis, right? And green and red for the same reason. Why do you think these things are black? Exactly, right, because they're not parallel to any of the axes. There's a really cool trick for troubleshooting your model, especially when you're beginning in SketchUp, that involves color by axis. I'm just going to show you that now. So this is, again, an example of using styles in a way that can actually help you model. Somebody's been here before. All right, everybody say goodbye to Bryce. Goodbye, Bryce. Okay, like happy birthday for somebody you don't like. Goodbye. Okay, he goes away. This is something that a lot of people happen. Okay, so this is a very simplified model, but I'm going to guarantee you this happened to one of your first models. So I'm going to get the move tool. I'm just going to move this over in that direction, but I'm going to move it like 0.01 inches, like that. And then I'm going to hide this little guy. All right. So this is just what happens to people when they're starting out with SketchUp. You make a model, and then something goes wrong, right? You used the move tool when you weren't supposed to. You didn't hit escape. Something got moved. You didn't realize it got moved. And a lot of the time, something like that happens. Something gets moved. To look at this, it looks like it's right? It looks like a perfect box. Everything should be cool. And then you go and you do something like this. You try to put a big old rectangular window on this. And when I click on this, it should sink in, right? I should create a rectangle that sits on that other surface. Oh, shoot, the rectangle is not sinking in. And so you go and you go, okay, look, I'm going to fix this. So you say, I'm going to draw an edge here. Ah, I hate you. And then you kind of do this. You're like, I hate you. You get the rectangle tool and you do this. And you're like, this is, but it said it should work. This should work. I hate you. Hands up if this has happened. Okay, right. So the reason that that happens, and it takes you about 2 years of using SketchUp before you realize to check this consistently. If I go up here to View and turn on Hidden Geometry, you'll see that there's actually an edge across there, because instead of this being one flat rectangle, this is actually 2 triangles establishing that. Now, easy to see on this model, right, because it's a relatively simple model. On a complex model, it can be pretty tricky, especially if you've brought in, like you've imported a DWG, the floor plan, right, AutoCAD something, and sometimes those don't come in exactly flat, right? Everything's kind of on a little bit of a different axis. Things don't meet. You end up snapping to points to trace things, and things just end up wiggy, and there's not much you can do. A cool trick for actually checking things out, watch this, is I'm going to go up here to Styles. I'm going to change, remember I'm in the Edit tab, and then over here in the Edges pane, I'm going to change my color from All Same to By Axis, like that. And look what I've got, okay? So you see, I'm just going to get rid of this guy here. So I know, because I'm not a monkey, that this is red, right? That should be red too, but it's not red, it's black. And so I know that there's something screwed up about that edge. So I know that I have to fix that edge. Without doing this, it'd be kind of hard to actually figure out which edges are messed up. But with this, it actually gets kind of fun and easy. You turn into kind of an anal retentive Sherlock Holmes, which is fun. All right, so that was trick number 1, using styles to actually make your life better. Let's go back to this. Go back over here. I'm going to go back to some other styles. That's what's in the assorted styles library. Color sets, I think this is, honestly, this was just Bryce having fun. He was like, let's make a camouflage one. Yeah, it's like for Hummers or something. And then I don't know what that's for. I never even opened this library, but if you like it, you like it. Let's choose, let's see, straight lines. So this is actually one where we just scanned straight lines that are of different thicknesses. So styles don't have to look hand-drawn. They can actually be done with straight lines as well, and I still get this cool thing where I get lines appearing to show me detail where I need it, and those lines disappear when I back out and I don't need that detail anymore. What I think is really cool is this new functionality called NPR Edges. This is sketchy edges, I guess, also. And what it means is, let me flip this on. So this is actually rendered in Conte. It looks pretty hand-drawn, doesn't it? I mean, it's a little bit disturbing, actually. This is like blue pen, I think. Here's that same thing, but with red edges. This is sketchy marker dry erase. This one is round point ends, things like that. So the way that these things are actually created is we take lines, actual lines that we hand drew with natural media, we scan them in, and then what this technology does is it maps the hand-drawn line to the edge that's showing up in the computer. Does that make sense? It's not only doing that, but it's dropping out detail as we get farther away. So NPR rendering is actually a combination of two things. It's hand-drawn looking edges, and it's also dropping out detail or adding detail where it should be. The whole notion here is to create drawings that abstract things so that you're not showing, let's say, a client something that looks more done than it actually is, right? Hands up if clients have overreacted to a computer drawing before. Right. So what we heard was that people were actually doing SketchUp models, but then they were printing them out and they were putting a piece of trace over them and they were drawing over them with a Sharpie to make it look handmade, right? And then you wait a week and then you show it to the client. We're like, this took me a week. And you show it to them and you go, and the client goes, oh, I've got an architect in the grand fashion of old architects. You know, this is a hand drawer. And it's a little ridiculous, right? Because it's sort of an extra step. And if the client says, I want to rotate it a little bit, can I get that view? You could say, that'll be another $600 in a week. I'll be back next Monday or something like that. But you can still do that, right? But then you can do it in 20 minutes, which is kind of neat about this. So this is a bunch of natural media more or less applied to these styles. And when we first shipped SketchUp 6 about a year, maybe 17 months ago, these were the styles you could use. This is kind of the library. The cool thing now is that we released this application called Style Builder, which is what I'm going to show you now, that lets you create your own styles. So you can use a template that you print out. I'm going to show you all of this. You can draw your own styles on it. You can scan it back in. I've got a scanner here. We're going to do it here. And you can make your own style. And the cool thing about that is that style is a style file. That sounds good, right? It's like a Bee Gees song or something. The style is a style file. It's actually got a .style extension on it. What that really means is, unless somebody else has your .style file, nobody else can ever make a SketchUp drawing that looks exactly like your SketchUp drawing. And that's important, right? I mean, since the advent of drawing on computers, it's been, the big downfall is I can make, if I'm using the same software as you, I can make a drawing that looks exactly like yours. This is a way of actually creating drawings on the computer that are unique to the user who made them. And we think that's pretty revolutionary. And you'll be able to do that too if you use Style Builder. Let's use Style Builder. Okay, first off, how do you get Style Builder? You go to our website. Hands up if you've never been to the new website. Oh, good. Okay, this is the spiffy new website we have. It looks more googly. Less designery, more googly. That's probably good. I'm going to go to Products, and then here under Style Builder, and I can actually download the beta for Style Builder right here. Okay, so that's how you get it. You download it, you install it, and then once it's all set, what you can do is you can actually launch it. So it becomes an application that lives in the same folder as Layout and SketchUp. I've got it here on the dock. I'm just going to launch it. And when you first launch it, this is what it looks like.
Did you say, do you need Pro for this? Or?
You do need Pro for Style Builder. We're trying to differentiate Pro from free in very specific ways. The notion, I guess, is that professional designers need to have their own hand applied to their models, and free users might not. That was the thinking anyway. Okay, so the basic interface for Style Builder is pretty simple, actually. What you've got is, this is kind of like a library of strokes right here that are hand-drawn. And they come in, I'll show you how they come in. What you do is you drag the strokes from over here into these little spots right there, like this. And you watch how I drag them. Once I'm dragging them, it doesn't matter how I drag them. Look, I can drag them with my left hand. Actually, I can't. No, I can't. So if I move this, let's say 64 pixels long, cool. So you see what I'm doing, right? It's not, I could be a monkey and do this. I could just sort of go, this goes here and this goes here. What I could say is this long line that's 256 pixels long, I could map to being 128. And then it adds this thing. The guy who coded this, by the way, is Swiss. So you get this kind of very stern, informative thing. George isn't actually like this, but it's not surprising. Anyway, I'm going to say OK. And then it actually scales that stroke. And what you see here is this is actually building a style. You see what's going on? This is just a little SketchUp model to which this style that I'm building is actually being applied. So I could say, put that there. I want you to put this here. That's pretty good. And so the style's getting built. Over here under settings, I can say, you know what, I'd like some extensions on this style, just like that. Maybe I want profiles as well. I don't ever use profiles. I could use halo. Check out what halo does. Let's actually add a little stroke over here. Boop. Just like that. Come down here. 256s. I'm going to sort of drag some in here as well. Boop, boop, boop.
Do those represent each axis?
They don't, actually. These things represent variations. That's a really good question. So the question was, do they represent each axis? What's actually happening is, regardless of how big you plan to print your model, it appears a certain way on your screen, right? So my screen is, right now, it's 1,024 pixels wide. That sounds familiar? If this, let's say this thing is, so that's 1024, right? And this is about a third of the length of the screen. So that edge is appearing about 300 pixels long right now. So what it's doing is it's saying, I need to use an edge that's between 256 and 512 pixels long to map that edge. Does that make sense? Okay, so the question is, why do I need more than one version of the line for each of those stroke lengths? Variation. Exactly, variation. Was there another answer?
I was saying picking at random between the...
That's exactly what it does. So it just chooses at random. Basically, when you are not a robot, right? When you draw, sometimes you draw a line that squiggles a little at the beginning, sometimes it breaks in the middle, sometimes it squiggles at the end. The more strokes you have set up in your style template, the more variation is going to be in your final model rendering. Does that make sense? So you can absolutely choose the number of strokes you want to have in a style. Right now it's defaulted to 3, but if I change this to 10, I could have as many as 10 strokes in each one of these things. I think it's a little overkill, and it's actually amazing how much just using 3 different strokes can work as well. Because what it does is it not only uses the strokes, but it actually scales them horizontally as well. So they don't end up looking as consistent as you would think they would. All right, that's the kind of unexciting part about Style Builder. Let's actually make our own style by making our own strokes. So the way you get started with this is you need to create a style template, okay? And basically what the style template is it's a raster image. I'm just going to go to File, Generate Template. It's a raster image that lets you, it gives you a space to draw in the strokes. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. In this case, I'm going to create a template that has 2 strokes per set. I want a place to make 32, 64, 128, and 256 pixel lengths. This is a little nerdy, I know, but it's easier than it seems. And I want my stroke width to be 20 in this case. I choose 20 because it's in the middle. This morning, someone asked why 20, and I like the idea that 16 is a number that a computer would pick, and so is 32, but a 20, that's like a people number, you know? Computers hate 20s. So that's going to be my number. Thank you. What you're going to do is you're going to name this. I'm just going to drop this in my, let's see, I think I have a Style Builder demo. Let's go. Created by Style Builder, and I'm going to make this template called Afternoon Template. Just like that. And it's going to have these criteria. It's going to save it as a PNG file. Hands up if you don't know what a PNG file is. Few people? Okay, so PNG is a file format for pictures just like TIFF or JPEG. Make sense? The cool thing about a PNG file is that you can save alpha transparency in it. So it saves an extra layer of information that tells the file which parts of it are supposed to be transparent and how transparent. Does that make sense? No? Let's explain it again then. Let's say you have an image and you need parts of it to be transparent so you can see the background behind it when you place it on top of something. That alpha channel that you include with the image tells the image which parts of it to be transparent and which parts aren't. Is that better? Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this template here.
Now, where is it on the website?
The actual style builder? It is. I think I closed my thing. If you go to sketchup.google.com and then choose under products, and then style builder, products is on the left in the nav, and then choose style builder, there's information about downloading it right there. Yeah. Okay, so rather satisfyingly, I've chosen to make this template and nothing happened, right? Where'd the template go? What's that? I told it to generate the template, but where did it go? I'm kind of going through this because I know the same thing's going to happen to you when you try to do this. This is in beta. Remember, this is the first version we've made of this product. So we're learning all kinds of things about the way that Style Builder should work from the way that people use it. But I want you to try it sooner than later, so I'm just kind of walking you through some of the things. I have to load it, right? I have to go find it somewhere. When I generated it, I actually put it on my hard drive, and I put it in that special folder. So I'm going to go over to my Finder, and I know I created it. I put it inside this folder called Created by Style Builder. And there it is right there. It's called Afternoon Template. So when you generate a template, it doesn't do anything magical. It just creates an image and sticks it on your hard drive. And then you can do anything you want with it. In this case, we're going to open it up in Photoshop so we can put some strokes in those spaces. I'll show you exactly what that template looks like. I'm going to open this with Photoshop right there. OK. How many people are using Leopard? Very good. You need to pay attention to this. How many people aren't using Leopard? Excellent. You don't need to pay attention to this. This morning, we discovered a bug in Style Builder. Who knew there's bugs in Style Builder that actually just appears to happen in Leopard. Instead of painting with, let's say, ink, it paints with transparency when it generates the template. So there's a cool little workaround that we discovered for this. Again, you don't need to pay attention to this if you're not using Mac OS X Leopard. I'm just going to create a layer that's solid black. And then I'm going to put that layer underneath the default layer that got created. You see the information that's actually supposed to be there? That's what it's going to look like on your computer when you load it if you don't have Leopard. I'm going to flatten this down. Here we go. Flatten image, just like that. Cool. All right, so what I've got is a style template now. And let me show you how this works. I'm just going to create a new layer. And I'm going to get my paintbrush. And let's create something that's a little bit flat right here. I'm going to give it some more hardness. And I'm going to paint some. I need to change my ink color to something. In this case, I'm going to go black. And I'm just going to kind of draw in these little spaces. So a gentleman who was in this morning's talk called this drawing with a bar of soap. This is the bar of soap, right? It's kind of a miserable way to do this. How many people have tablets, like Wacom tablets or something? All right. So what you could do is you could absolutely use Painter or Photoshop and actually do natural media on your tablet like that. I'm kind of faking it right now just by doing this. I don't recommend this. This is not the way that you're going to retain clients. Look how unique my hand is. I draw like Ray Charles. Pardon me? That's a great question. So the question is, do I need to be careful of avoiding the ends of the boxes or touching the ends of the boxes? Anything that's outside the box is going to get cut, basically. Excellent point. This is going to end up looking a little bit weird because it's clipped at the end. We can actually, let's load it into Style Builder and actually see what it ends up looking like, okay? So what I just did is I drew inside those little boxes. I'm going to save that guy as a new ping right here. I'm going to call it Afternoon Template Back at Ya or something like that. And I'm going to say save, just like that. All right, let's close that. Oops, let's not close that. Let's go back to Style Builder. And what I want to do is, okay, let me explain this first of all. the way that Style Builder works is it sort of opens up different projects, if that makes any sense. So this project right now is untitled, and I can have any number of styles, or not styles, strokes off to the side, and I can be mixing and matching them and playing with them and stuff like that. I can have a bunch of different projects open at the same time. Does that make sense? So I could be working on a style that's made with like rapidograph and chalk, and another style that's made with elephant poo and red paint or something like that. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be one file. So right now I've got two Style Builder. I'm making up a word here, but I'm calling them projects. This is one that's open. I'm going to open another one. I'm going to open it from the template that I just saved, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to do that. Here's the template that I just saved. I'm going to say open. And what it just did is actually applied that crappy little style that I made to this little building. So here are the strokes, right? Everybody sees those? Look what happened right here. Does everybody see that? I'll zoom, nausea. Okay, so when I zoom in, you see how it sort of clipped off the end? That's what happened because I overran the end of that thing. So thanks for asking about that, because I think it's an important point.
You recommend just intentionally leaving it short at both ends?
I would recommend leaving it short at both ends, kind of coming right at the end.
What about
Yeah.
when it
The little corners? Watch this. Okay, so over here in settings, I can come over here and say I want extensions, like that. And that actually closes up the thing. So the cool thing about this is we programmatically influence how much those lines actually touch each other, which gives you some control, which is nice. How many people, look at this. Okay, you see this halo right here? Notice how this is kind of emulating what happens when you actually draw, right? When you have an edge and an edge comes to another edge, you know how you you don't touch it and it kind of implies space being behind something else? Watch. We call that halo in SketchUp. I'm going to turn that on. You see what just happened here? See that little gap? So no matter how much I orbit this little guy, he's like afraid of the other one. No, no, I'm chasing him around. If I increase that halo number, it's going to back it off even more. Does that make sense? So you can increase the extent to which your lines appear not to touch when they would cross, which is kind of neat. And of course, I could go nuts with the extensions and make this look all crossy like that. More importantly, there's a function here in Style Builder that you should know about because actually someone asked about it this morning, and I'm very disappointed in all of you that nobody asked it here because it means that you're sleepy because it's after lunch. You see up there where it says width up in the top right corner? So right now that's saying that my strokes are 20 pixels wide, like thick sort of. One of the complaints that we hear a lot with styles is they really like that stroke, but it's too thick. How do I make my stroke look thinner? Does that sound familiar? This is where you make the stroke thinner. There's a big asterisk next to that. In layout, you can actually render your strokes thinner. But if you're not using layout, if you're just going out of SketchUp for some reason, then you can make them thinner by bringing the style back here in Style Builder and thinning this down. And the way you do it is you just choose a different width. Watch. If I tell this that those things are only 8 pixels wide, then it renders them nice and thin, just like that. Okay? That's something you need to remember. Yeah?
But in a hand drawing, you vary your line weights.
That's absolutely right.
Can you do it in this?
You can if I had made, let's say I had created a style. So the question was, in a hand drawing, you would vary your line weights. Can you do it here? In this case, the only way I could think of doing it would be to either have different variations on the same stroke length that were different widths, so that SketchUp would sort of randomly choose a different width, or I would actually make the stroke thick at one end, break up towards the middle, and then thick at the other end. And let me show you a style that's actually built that way. I think I know what you're talking about. Tell me if I'm not.
It wouldn't be random. You would do, if
Right.
I was drawing that in our windows, my outline would be the darkest line, and then the windows would be thinner lines, and line weights.
Line weights, right.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Profiles do that.
Yeah, I guess profiles do that. That's good. I'm glad I thought of that. Who thought of that? Who thought of that for me over there? All right. Socks, is that Ross? Nice. The Canadians always, I'm telling you, quicker. We're quicker because it's cold and we have to keep the blood pumping. Okay. I'm going to go over here. I just wanted to show you one thing, which I think is interesting. These are some styles that we made just recently. This is actually one that Bryce drew with a Sharpie. So what he actually did is he made the edges thicker at the edges, the edges thicker at the ends and thinner towards the middle, which gives you that nice emphasized endpoint. But that's not what you're talking about. You're saying these should be a little thinner than these because these are right there. Yeah, I agree with you. I guess by turning on profiles, you could get that to happen. Let's actually try that. I'm going to go to Edit, and over here I'm going to turn on Profiles, and let's see if it actually does that. I don't know if it will or not. It looks like it sort of did it, but it looks like it's sort of thickening all of them. You asked about depth Q. Let me turn off Profiles and turn on depth Q. What depth Q does is it automatically thickens the stuff in the foreground and thins the stuff in the background. It doesn't work so well on NPR edges because there's less of a difference, basically. But if I were to apply a different style to this thing, let's go up to Default Styles and choose maybe, I don't know, that one. And then go back over here. I'm going to turn off Profiles and turn on depth queuing. Do you see how this edge is thicker than that edge? Okay, so that's a way to actually get, I guess, depth of field or to get some atmospheric perspective in your drawing by actually telling it to render the lines in the foreground thicker than the lines in the background. What it's not doing is rendering lines of major structural elements thicker than other lines. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's what you want. I'm just saying that's our solution. Okay. All right, so we got that. Let me go back over to Style Builder. I've got this thing. What we really want to be able to do, though, is we want to, at least what I want to be able to do, is we want to be able to do this so that, I'm going to get rid of that. Here we go. I want to be able to hand draw my own edges in there. Yes, absolutely.
You have to scan this template, right?
Mm-hmm.
And open that. Now, it's how big it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to get to that. So the question is, you have to scan this template. How big is it supposed to be? How do you actually go about the scanning part? That's exactly what I'm going to talk about now. Because this is what I recognize. This is actually the hard part because most people aren't Photoshop experts. So to actually get the template out of your computer, the drawings onto the template, and then the template back into the computer at the right resolution and cropped properly and everything is the hard part of Style Builder. So that's what I'm about to spend 20 minutes on. Okay? Okay, this is a neat thing. Let's see. So everybody, maybe most people actually, do you have a style template that I printed out? Everybody see that? Yeah, hold them up? All right, so you all see that. Does everybody have a pen? Okay, I want to draw some style. So all you have to do is just draw some edges on those little boxes there. If somebody's got a fat Sharpie or something, make sure to put a piece of paper underneath your paper so we don't have paying for the desks. I don't want that coming out of SketchUp's budget. You're going to draw a style? No? You should draw a style too. Everybody should draw a style. Yeah. Pen? Here, we got some pens here. Yeah.
I noticed that on the paper, the limit is 256 pixel length.
Uh-huh.
How do you get the 512 that you had on the...
Excellent question. So Jean's question is, how do I get that nice 512 pixel length instead of just the 256? The way to do that, back in Style Builder, here, remember when I was generating a template? I had the option to choose other ones here. So I chose to generate a very simple template with only 4 line lengths. But I could, if I wanted, generate a template that had 6 different line lengths. I want 4 different strokes per set, and I want these to be nice and thick. I could say, we'll call that Biggie or Boggy. I like that better. Okay, and save. I'm going to go back over to Photoshop and open that. And I have to go through my shenanigans again because of the leopard thing. Boo, leopard. For now, anyway. I'm going to move this down and flatten. And so this is what the style template looks like if I choose those particular options. Does everybody get the reason for that? Okay. We're just making a simple style here because I don't want your arms to get tired. I'm going to close this. All right, and that's the style template. Now, who has a style that they're very proud of? Shall we scan one? All right, this gentleman raised his hand a little earlier. We'll do a couple of them. All right, do you want to put your name on there? Excellent, cool. You should put your name on there. You're about to be famous. If being 25 people is famous, then, well, 55 maybe. Okay, cool. So we'll do these two. Thank you very much. We've got Alan and Philip. Philip and Alan. All right. Philip's the one with the beard, except that Alan has a beard too. All right. So I've got these styles. I've got a problem now, though, right? Because the problem is, if I just scan that in and give that to Style Builder, tragedy. Style Builder's going to say, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. There's this barcode, and I clearly told you in the barcode that this template should be exactly these pixels, and it should have exactly this. And you're sending me something with green and schmutz on the paper, and it's the wrong size, and it's going to freak out. So what we need is a way to predictably get our stuff that we're scanning off of this paper and into those boxes in Photoshop. And this is all just Photoshop stuff. This doesn't have anything to do with SketchUp. Who uses Photoshop? Who doesn't use Photoshop at all? Okay. If you don't use Photoshop at all, look at one of the people who just raised their hand and make good friends with them. You could be like email pen pals, and you can send them files to fix for you. But basically, this is how you can, or you could get Photoshop, I guess. Or something like Photoshop. There's GIMP, and there's other things besides Photoshop that do what Photoshop does. All you need is something that's basically a pixel editor. Photoshop's ubiquitous, and so that's why I'm showing that right now. My trick for doing this is actually one step before printing out a template. This is just my trick, and I'm going to actually have this down on a series of notes that we're going to put up on the website so people can see it. Am I on? Yeah? Okay. What I'm doing is I'm just drawing a big old box around there, and then I'm going to go over here to stroke, just like that, and I'm going to stroke that with a line that's 1 pixel wide. So I've got a box, okay? Now what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to print this template out exactly like this on an 8.5 by 11, and I don't want it to scale at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say print. And in this case, I'm going to make sure that I don't have this scale to fit media business clicked. If I do that, it's going to change the size, and it's going to be problems, lasers, horribleness. If I do that, big problem. I don't want to do that. So I want to leave that unchecked. I want to make sure that I'm printing at 100%, and I can hit print. And if I do that, I'm going to get something that looks very much like this. I turned this into crop marks instead of a big bounding box, basically. But what it gives me is a bounding box on the sheet that I can crop to afterwards. Okay, so let's actually scan something in and see how it works. I'm going to get rid of, actually I'm going to leave this up because I need it. Let's everybody cross our fingers. How many people? We have Alan and Philip. Hands up for Philip's first. Hands up for Alan's first. No, we'll do this fair because Philip just got screwed. Okay, Philip first. It's not a popularity contest. Okay, Alan first. Alan, we'll make it alphabetical. Okay, Alan wins. We're going to do Alan's. Everybody sees this? Sort of. We got some nice thick black lines. All right. We're just going to slap that onto the scanner. Bum, bum, bum. And now we're going to pray, because sometimes it works. And then we're going to go import, CanoScan. This is going to be different from you, because you might have a different scanner. Beautiful. Plug in the scanner. Excellent. Okay. I love it when it's easy. It's great. I looked at that and my heart stopped. And I thought, oh no. This is a second scanner I've bought in 3 weeks, because well, I didn't do it. We tore apart the last scanner because we thought it was broken. It turns out it was just on the edge of the paper. It was plugged in. It was on the edge of the table. When you buy a cheap scanner, if you sit them crooked on a table, it pushes in on the bottom of the scanner and impedes the motor from moving back and forth, like it is now, actually. No pressure points on the scanner. Anyway, so this was at AIA, and we decided to rip apart the scanner right before the show, and we had this broken scanner, and it was making evil noises. So we bought another one, and I think I just broke it again. Cross your fingers. Everybody picture your favorite deity. Yes? Oh, no. Oh, here we go. Let's just push it in. Thank you. Other problems. All right, that worked. Cool. So what I'm doing is I'm going to scan this in. The only thing you need to know right now, this is the note you need to take. You see where it says my output resolution should be 72 dpi? Everybody see that? Who thinks that's a low resolution? A lot of people. Why do you think it's low? Anybody? Somebody take charge. Yeah, exactly, right? Everybody always says, you should make it 300, make it 400, make it 600, make it as many pixels. Ah, it's 2008. The point is, you're kind of right. I mean, the eye is really good at noticing crappy resolution. But here's the thing. The template that Style Builder generated is only at 72 dpi. So that's the best it's going to import. Does that make sense? If we do this at any higher than 72 TPI, we're actually just creating extra work for ourselves because we're going to have to scale that scan drawing back down to exactly the size of the template before we can do it, and that just adds a step. So I find it's just easier to scan it at 72 DPI and leave it at that. You're not going to get an increase in performance or quality or anything like that if you do it other way, okay? So all you have to remember about the scanning step is scan it in at 72 DPI. How are we doing for time here? Hey, we're doing pretty good on time, actually. We've got till 3:45, right? It's about half an hour? Okay. So I'm happy with this. I'm just going to say scan. Do not open the document cover. Pardon me? Yeah.
Where did the template file that you have open in Photoshop come from?
Where did the template file that I have open in Photoshop come from? It was exactly the file that Style Builder actually generated. So it was the same thing that I just printed out on paper. Yeah. I'm going through this slowly and kind of pedantically. I apologize. It's just that it was hard for me to get my head around, like, okay, so what gets generated and what do I feed into what? That's why I'm trying to go through this methodically. Okay, everybody sees this? If anybody wants to spam Adam, you know, or Alan, you know his last name now, I think. Nevling? Yes. Nevling. Okay, cool. Alan Nevling, gmail.com? Okay, something like that. Okay, so what we've got is this nice scan. And what do I need to do to this maybe first in order to get it down to something manageable? Ideas? Cropping? That's a good one. What else should I do?
Change the color.
Change the color? To what?
From green.
From green, okay. My strategy is actually going to be to cut out the strokes on this one and paste them into the other document. So I don't think we need to do that. But let's start with the cropping, okay? So I'm just going to crop. Let's grab the crop tool. I'm going to, and you don't have to be super precise about this. A few pixels is no big deal. So I'm just going to crop it like that. Let's crop that down. Okay. Let's get this zoomed up a little bit. Now, what else might I need to do to this? Change the contrast? How come? It's expecting black and white, exactly. It's actually not expecting black and white. It's expecting something in white. So let's try and get the white as we can possibly get, okay? So the way I like to do that in Photoshop is to use levels. Let's see, if you go to, it's Control L, but you can also do Image, Adjustments, Levels. And then I slide the little white guy over this way. Sliding white guy is, by the way, very popular in Canada. We're going to do this. It's called hockey. Anyway, sorry. Move this over this way. Okay. We'll do this. I'll move this over this way. Okay, so I'm kind of approximating white, right? I can click on this if I want to be anal about it and just kind of click my little white eyedropper around until I get something that looks white. That's better, right? That's what it looked like before. That's what it looks like now. Okay? Yeah, better. All right. So there's a bunch of different ways that I could actually cut out these strokes. If I wanted, I could go in and I could say, choose all the green, get rid of the green, make it white, and then just choose everything else if I wanted to. I could go in with the little rectangular selection tool and choose all the pixels that I need and actually copy-paste them into the other one. In this case, it's a relatively simple template, and I only have to make 8 selections to make that work, so I'm going to do the latter. I'm just going to make 8 rectangle selections. Yeah?
Could you just throw a piece of tracing paper on top of the template and draw on it?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you could get the crop marks correct. Yeah. So what this gentleman just suggested was, could you just throw a piece of tracing paper on top of the template, reproduce the crop marks on it so you'd know where to crop, and then scan that, and that's absolutely possible as well. Yeah. You could magic dropper it as well. Yeah. I'm not sure what that means. You mean with this magic dropper here? The magic wand thing? Yeah, so I could select all the green, I guess if I had contiguous. Ah, exactly. Okay, so what we're getting at here is there's a lot of ways to skin a cat in Photoshop. You're going to absolutely have your favorite method. My favorite method was to actually create a Photoshop action. That's basically a macro or like a series of commands that are recorded to isolate the green, take care of it. And that way it kind of corrected for any crop issues I had. And so what I did is I recorded an action that let me slam something down on there, press a button, it automatically turned into a style. So it was one big thing. In this case, I'm going to go the slow way because I think it's the easiest way to learn. If you're advanced enough in Photoshop to know what I'm doing wrong, then more power to you. I'm going to deselect this. Let's grab this. I'm just going to grab some little rectangles here. Here we go. So I'm cutting these things out. There's one. I'm going to hold down Shift to select some more. Let's grab some more. This is the exciting part. It's like watching paint peel. You can keep watching. Nothing exciting is going to happen, I promise. There's not dancing rhinoceroses or anything. I'm just selecting.
Do you have to avoid selecting any of the green outline bar?
That's a good question. So the question was, do you have to avoid selecting any of the green? Yeah. Not really. Okay, so that was good, huh? Wow. I should run for office. What you need to do, I'll show you why when I copy paste this in. Let's just grab a little bit more of this thing. So I'm going to make a bad selection, just like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy. I just hit Control C or Apple C on a Mac, like that. And then I'm going to go up to my other document, which is right here. Now, if everything went well, all I should get is the stuff that I just cut out. Let's try. Why do you think that happened?
You're out of control.
Because I'm out of control. Yeah, I don't know exactly why that happened. It looks like it just dumped it in the middle of the page. No big deal. What I could probably do is just sort of move this over like that, right? So it didn't exactly ruin my day. What it did was actually bring in that green stuff. It's not a big deal that it brought in the green stuff because this barcode, when I bring this back into Style Builder, tells Style Builder to only bring in the stuff that's inside these rectangles. So the green thing is going to be a problem if it's like this inside the rectangle, but as long as the green thing is outside of that predefined black rectangle, it's not going to be a big issue. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to, at this point, grab a rectangle and just get rid of that green thing so that I don't tempt fate. Let's deselect that. Now, there's a fair amount of garbage in here. Everybody see that garbage right there? Oh, you know what? Oh, no. Sorry, that was stupid. Okay, I do that because, so you become so comfortable speaking in front of a crowd that you actually forget that you're speaking in front of a crowd. And be like, I'll start picking my nose and take off my pants to get more comfortable. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just sort of click on this thing. Now I want to clean up some of that stuff, so on this layer, I'm just going to do that levels thing again. I'm going to move this little white thing over just like that, and it's cleaning up some of that stuff again, which I find kind of helpful. We'll say OK. Now let's actually save this guy as a ping. So we're going to give Style Builder what it wants. What should we call this now? We'll call it, oh, we should call it your name, right? Where's your name? Alan? Alan Nevling. Alan Nevling, okay. Alan, oops, Nevling. This is how, I know because I work at Google, nerds write like this. They don't like spaces. They like to do an uppercase thing like that. So I'm going to do that too so I get accepted. We'll do that and say save, just like this. Good. All right, let's go back to Style Builder. I'm going to close this project because it's ugly. Don't save. Let's close this one too. You see how those are different projects? I'm just going to open a new one. I'm going to go Open Template. Let's choose the one I just made. There it is right there. It's going to say Open. And lo and behold, we have your little hand-drawn strokes applied to the model. Make sense? Now, I'd like to see them a little thinner. It's not a comment on you at all. It's just I'd like to see the strokes a little thinner. Like that, let's actually give it some extensions. And let's say I like that. I'm just going to save it out. So we'll call this something. I'm going to call it Alan Nevling, just like that. And let's save this style as something. I'm going to call it Alan Nevling 1 because I might want to do different variations on this, right? I might want to do one that's 12 pixels thick. I might want to do one that's 32 pixels thick. I can do a lot with the strokes that we just scanned. You understand how that works? Just based on this. So I can have different styles made out of this. I'm going to tell you where to put the style file that you created right now, okay? If you're on a Mac, pay attention. If you're on Windows, don't. It'll be poison for your mind. So we're going to go to Hard Drive, Library, Application Support, Google SketchUp 6. How many people think this should be easier? Feature request, right? Okay, so what this should do is it should be, they should automatically, we've got a bunch of developers up there. We should tell them, everybody shake your fist at the developers. When it comes out of beta, what should happen is, actually none of the people who work on Styles are up there. He was here this morning. Shake your fist and say, we want a default to save to my Styles folder so I don't have to go through this. Shake, 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 like that. Okay, so back in here, Google SketchUp 6, SketchUp Styles, and I'm going to create a new folder. Actually, I'm not going to create a new folder. I'm just going to put it inside Sketchy Edges. It's called AlanNevling1.style. I'm going to say save, just like that. And again, rather satisfyingly, nothing happens. So I'm going to go back to SketchUp, and let's apply that style. I'm going to go over here to my Sketchy Edges. Let's go to my list view so I can see things more clearly. And what do I have to do to make it show up? Thank you, refresh. Socks for you. Do you know that we give out socks? No? Yeah, okay, that's a joke that totally flew over everybody's head. We have these awesome socks that we've been giving out for years, and so if they say SketchUp, it doesn't stink. And usually when we're at trade shows, we give away the socks, and so I'm used to saying socks for you, but it doesn't work because there's no socks. Only t-shirts and free trips. Okay, we'll go to refresh. All right, there it showed up, Alan Nevling, cool. So everybody ready? Drum roll, anybody know how to do? Drum roll? All right, everybody, excellent. Ta-da! All right, very nice. Let's give it a round of applause. Thank you very much, Alan. Should we do one more?
Now, can you change the overlapping edges?
That's a good question. So the question is, can we change the way that the edges overlap in here? The answer is absolutely. What do you have? You have a style? But we've got to do Phillips, though, because otherwise he's going to beat up on Alan. You can tell he's got murder in his eyes. We're going to go Edit, and then over here in Styles, if I change the extensions, I can absolutely do that here, right in here. That's a good question. Basically, there was too much detail. Well, okay. So the real answer is those cushions are components, and the edges in those components are within a component, and they're too short to be rendered right now. So SketchUp, in its wisdom, decided that there was not enough detail in there to merit showing all of those edges. There's a way to get those edges to show up. It's to do this. Watch, I'm going to go back to edges. You see this little level of detail slider right there? If I change that level of detail, it actually makes more edges show up instead of less. So this little slider lets me say I want this thing to be more abstracted or less abstracted, just like that. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah. Pardon me? It did. What it's doing is it's kind of making it hazy. It's giving it a transparency to make it look like it's sort of faded back. I'm not sure why.
No, I think it had to do with your previous view before you just turned on tan-colored couch.
I have it. Pardon me? The couch was tan-colored. Yeah, I turned on the. I turned it from color to black and white to make it look that way.
So the style we made has only to do with the edges, with the line.
Exactly. Right. Absolutely, yeah. I'm sorry. Let's clarify that. So what's just been pointed out for the benefit of the microphone and the people watching this 3 years from now. Hello, future people 3 years from now. It's kind of exciting. It feeds my ego. I'm not just talking to you. It's future people. For the benefit of them, the edge styles that I'm influencing right now have no bearing on the way that the faces in the model are rendered. Right now, I can change the way that the faces are rendered independent of the way that I'm doing the edges, like that. Okay. When we're videotaping this, are we getting the screens as well? Okay, good. It's not just me. That's good. That would be weird. Let's go up here. Yes?
So my question was that the style builder, what's called the style builder,
Mm-hmm.
like to me it seems that part of the style is more than just the stroke. It's like the background or watermark or shading and all of these things. But the style builder is actually more like a stroke builder.
So the comment, never mind. I would like the record to show that he made that comment and not me, though I approve wholeheartedly. So the comment was, again, for the benefit of the future, that maybe style builder isn't the right name for the product, right? Because the style actually is the strokes, it's the colors, it's the way all of the display settings work, including watermarks, other stuff. maybe it should just be called Stroke Builder instead of Style Builder. I happen to agree with you. Maybe somebody else had Stroke Builder already, though. That's entirely possible. This has definitely come up within our team, and I doubt that the product name would ever change, but maybe at some point it would be cool if more style stuff would get incorporated into Style Builder. What's that? This is why we don't use focus groups. Okay, wait. Sorry. Okay, let's do another one. Hands up for doing another one, just so people can see it again.
Philip is actually shy, and he asked to see watermarks instead of another one of the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We are going to get to watermarks, I promise. We're going to hurry through the next one, and then we'll get to watermarks. You don't need the next one? Okay, let's do this by vote. Hands up for doing another one. Hands up for doing, okay. We'll do it afterwards, I promise. Hands up for doing watermarks. Okay, we have it by unanimous vote then. Well, almost unanimous except for poor Philip. If you see him coming and you're crossing the road, what's that?
The extension
Uh-huh.
basically import whatever was in Style Builder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put extensions to 0, none of these would meet at the corners, right?
Yeah, so the question is, if I set extensions to 0, none of these strokes would actually meet at the corners. We use extensions to determine the extent to which those corners meet or overlap.
So you just assume at the get-go that the corners are never going to meet unless you have extensions on.
Absolutely right. The corners will never meet unless you have extensions on. That's correct. I'm 99% sure that's correct, but I'm sure there's people who can correct me. Uh-huh. If the stroke went all the way to the end, they would touch. That's probably correct. Yeah, I like that better. I'm going to revise my answer. Again, Ross to the rescue. Excellent. Let's get to watermarks. Yes?
If you set extension on but put 0 as a parameter, can you put 0?
Let's try that. So he is suggesting that we turn extensions on, but we set the parameter to 0. They still don't meet. Yeah, okay. Let's try watermarks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. I'm actually going to close this model, and I'm going to open it up fresh. There we go. Doop, let's close Styles. Okay, so has anybody actually downloaded any of these things from the 3D Warehouse yet? Tutorials with instructions on them? Okay, you have? Excellent, cool. Socks for you. It's like this incredibly, socks for you! Yeah, we don't have any socks. I have some socks you can have. You can wash them. So what we wanted to be able to do is we wanted to be able to put basically a text or an image frame over the model so that it would be easy to have instructions that people could still play with the model. So the cool thing about this is I can orbit the model here in this window. I can make it big or, well, big or small like that. Do this. You notice how this is just an overlay on there? And when I actually change the way this is scaled, that thing is floating as well. So a lot of people, when they see this, they think this is actually an extra layer, or they think it's some sort of a group or some sort of strange object. This is actually what we call a watermark in SketchUp. And a watermark is basically just a raster image, like a PNG or a JPEG or a TIFF, that you tell, you basically set it as part of a style, and you tell that to either be an overlay or an underlay in your style. Does that make sense? So is this an overlay or an underlay? Overlay, exactly. Socks for you. In this case,
Is it available in Ghetto or only in Pro?
in Ghetto? That's not appropriate. Again, another reason we don't use focus groups. I think it should be that.
Answer the question.
Yeah. This is absolutely available in both versions of SketchUp. Both Pro and non-Pro. How's that? Okay. So let's actually take a look at what that watermark looks like if I go into my little styles here. So inside Styles, inside Edit, this is the watermark tab. It's the fourth one over from the left. Watch, if I say don't display watermarks, it's just going to turn that off. Incidentally, these are scenes, and all these scenes do is they change which style is applied to the model. Does that make sense? So I have one scene where this style is applied and one scene where another style with that watermark is applied. Okay, what this is showing is I've got model space. and I've got this watermark called watermark 1 above it there. I didn't practice what I preach. I didn't call that anything meaningful. I just left it as watermark 1. But basically, model space here is the space. Think about, I don't know. It's hard to conceive of. But model space is basically the space that the model exists in. Anything that's below model space is an underlay, and anything that's above model space is an overlay. Make sense? Okay. So this is an overlay. If I actually click on it and then say edit, you can see that I could name it. So let's actually name it something meaningful. Instructions. There we go. And you can see that it's set to stretched. I'm not going to worry about this right now. But let's actually make our own watermark, okay? So the watermark I want to teach you how to make is putting a logo maybe in the bottom right corner of your screen. So what you could do is set SketchUp so that your logo always appears in the bottom right. Is that useful to people? Try that? Okay. Before I do that, let me show you one thing. If I go to paper watermarks, these are styles that we created. This is basically chipboard. Is that chipboard an underlay and overlay? Underlay. Let's check to see if you're right. It's actually an overlay and an underlay. So the reason for that is we did the underlay so that it would show up behind, right? And we did an overlay with some transparency so it would actually give the texture of the material above the model. So it's just kind of a trick. But you can see that you can use watermarks pretty conventionally to make different material textures as well. And that's one of the ways we thought it would be used. There's watercolor paper. It's quasi-convincing. If you maybe change this to something like watercolor, where you actually apply watercolor edges to that, you could get something that looks something like that. Okay, let's actually make a logo watermark. So, I'm just going to go to my default styles. I'm going to choose a really simple one like that. What I want to do is I want to create a watermark that's going to sit down here in the corner of the screen like that. Let's just move this up here. So what do you think is the first thing I need to do? What's that? Edit? Edit the thing? What image am I going to use as a watermark? I have to create an image, right? That's probably what you're going to have to do. So, or yeah, I guess you could import, but let's actually go back to Photoshop and make sure that logo looks the way we want it to look. So I'm going to go back over here to Photoshop. Let's close this. Close that. And I'm going to open this. Boop. Okay. So, we have new people. Excellent. Welcome. Everybody sees this? It's a color Google logo, Google SketchUp. What I want to do is I want to put it down in the corner. So I like that very much. I like the way it's sitting. Let's just close that. I know that that's the file I want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Watermarks. Let's add a watermark. So I'm going to click on this. It's going to ask me to go and find that file that I just used. Where is it? It's this one, right? Right there. And I'm going to say Open. And we'll call it Logo, just like that. And actually, let's go Previous. I want to make sure that it's an overlay, right, instead of a background. If I say it should be a background, it's going to be behind my model. If I want to say it to be overlay, it should be in front of the model. And I'm going to say Next. Now, you see this little transparency slider? I don't want it to be a ghostly logo. I want it to be a full-bodied logo, like that. Now I'm going to say Next. Stretch to fit the entire window looks like this. Tiled is going to tile it, and Positioned is going to let me say where I want it. So I want it down in this corner, and I want it to be maybe a little smaller, like that. And I'm going to say Finish, just like that, okay? So what I did is, now, whenever I have my model in here, I've got a nice little watermark, and the logo is always there. Now, how could that be better? Transparency. Transparency where? In the rectangle, exactly, right? So this is a surefire sign of somebody who doesn't know what the heck they're doing. If you have a logo, right, somebody spent probably, I'm going to say $50 to get that logo created. Maybe $60. I happen to love the logo, but I doubt that there was a huge brand consultancy or anything like that. I think it was just a really talented designer. Anyway, you spend a lot of money on your logo, a lot of time, and then you put a big stupid white rectangle behind it. Look, I don't know how to use a computer. What you need to do is you need to create a file that cuts out that white stuff, right? and only lets you show the color. So how do you cut out the white stuff? We need to do that in Photoshop, right? So let's do that. I get up and run around a lot. I'm sort of hyper. Okay, let's open this up. I'm going to open up my logo there. All right, so again, everybody has their favorite technique for Photoshop, so please don't give me any grief. The way I like to do this is I like to say, choose a color range. I'm going to pick on white, adjust my fuzziness, like that. And then I'm going to duplicate this layer, get rid of that, and then I'm going to delete that stuff and deselect. And what that did is it deselected all the white, and I'm left with just the color stuff on a transparent background. It's not, as you may think if you're not a Photoshop user, a checkered background. Checkered in Photoshop means that it's transparent. Does that make sense? Okay, so if I save this as a JPEG, what's going to happen? It's going to be white. Why? Ah, exactly. JPEGs don't support transparency. So that's why we use PNGs instead of JPEGs. Why use JPEGs at all then, if we have this PNG? What's that? Actually, PNGs are very small as well. So not just smaller file size. Convention. That's it, right? People use JPEGs. I mean, every single image you find on the web is a JPEG. JPEG's just what everybody does. So bajillions of images are JPEGs. People are just going to use JPEGs. PNG is actually a more versatile format. I've heard actually from someone this morning that IE6, Internet Explorer 6, doesn't fully support PNGs, and that might be another reason not to use them. But we use PNGs because they allow for saving for transparency. So watch this. I'm going to save this file as a PNG file, a PNG. We're going to call it exactly that, .png. We're going to put it in my, let's put it on my desktop. There we go. And I'm going to say save and say OK. Now let's go back to SketchUp. Let's get rid of this watermark that I just created before. Okay, so now I have no watermark again. Everybody see that? And I'm going to go to, how do I do this? I want you to walk me through it. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this. All right, how do we start? Yell it out. Open window, styles. Okay, good. Now what? I'm clicking through. Okay, what's that? How do I do it? Edit. Yeah. Oops, I should go back to another one. Let's go back to default. Sorry, I messed everybody up there. Okay, so edit, fourth from the left, right there, watermark. Now what? Plus, right there. Now what? Okay, I'm on my desktop. Now what? It's this one? Right there. Okay, I think it's right there. And I'm going to go to open. And look what happened. Awesome, right? No transparency, no background. So that's how you get something with transparency in it. You go into Photoshop, you cut out the stuff you don't want to be there, and then you save it as a PNG file, and that's how you get transparency in a watermark. Let's call that again, like that. I'm going to go to next. I'm going to make sure it's nice and opaque, no namby-pamby logos for me. We'll use it full force. Go next. I'm going to say I want this positioned. Let's put it down in the corner and scale it down a little bit and hit finish. And now what I have is a logo that always sits down in the corner, just like that.
What if you want to custom locate it?
Can you repeat that, please?
To custom locate it, not on that particular grid.
So the question is, what if you would like it custom located, not actually putting it on that particular grid? You are free to rewrite the software however you know. Let's see. What I'm going to do is let's select on it. We'll do that and then edit. It looks like in this implementation, the only way to do it is actually to choose one of these 9 conditions. Oh, we have other opinions. Yes?
Depending on the edges that it has when you save it as a paint,
Uh-huh.
it'll change its location. That's why it's not all the way over to the right.
Exactly. So the answer there was save it with a bigger, I guess, frame, a bigger crop frame if you want it to be moved to right or left of one of these positions. But it would be really neat in another implementation of this if you could sort of pick this up and drag it and put it wherever you like. It's just not possible.
Your position up there doesn't do anything. What other choices do you have besides the position?
Oh, that's a good question. We have stretched, which does that. If we turn off aspect ratio, we're in violation of Google policy. Can't do that. Lasers. Okay, wait, we're gonna go down. We'll go to tiled. This actually tiled it on the screen for me, so I could say make it big tiled, make it little tiled. This is just annoying. Too many. Google, 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 like that. We'll go to positioned, and that just gives me one of them. And then I can play with the scale. So I agree with you, that'd be cool, but it's not available right now. It is possible to get it the way you want it. It just takes some experimentation, because what you would do in Photoshop is you would actually crop it differently. Okay. Let's go back here to SketchUp. I'm going to put it back down in that corner and say OK, just like that. And any questions? Yes?
When I create a style, sometimes it has a question mark.
When you create a style, it has a question mark.
Where it has the arrows, the arrows going in both directions. Question mark.
Right here?
Correct.
Weird. Does anybody in the back know why it has a question mark there sometimes? No? Wow. OK. We're very interested in your copy of SketchUp, and we would like to see that question mark forthwith. Other questions? Yes?
I'd just like to ask what you felt would be the most efficient way to create a landscape plan house.
What would be the... It's 3:43. Okay. So the question is, what would be the most efficient way to create a landscape for the house? In 2 minutes. In 2... What kind of a landscape? Like... OK, the most efficient way. Ta-da! Wait, no, wait. There we go. It's Kansas. Okay, wait. I think that's a different. I think it's a different talk, but I could absolutely speak to that if I had a little bit more time. We can talk afterwards if you like. Other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.